Good evening and welcome. We're so grateful you've decided to join your Visionary Women community for a moment of stillness and calm. I'm Ani Packard, the Executive Director of Visionary Women. Since January 7th, our beloved city has endured the unimaginable. And yet, in this moment of profound loss, we witness the extraordinary resilience and generosity of our great community. Thanks to your generous support, Visionary Women has raised $80,000 to help support ongoing wildlife relief efforts to the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation and Project Angel Food. This evening, we're incredibly lucky to have Dr. Stefanie Goldstein with us. Dr. Stefanie Goldstein is a highly respected, licensed clinical psychologist and mindful educator based in West Los Angeles. She co-founded the Center for Mindful Living, among many other programs. Dr. Stefanie Goldstein's private practice focuses on helping adolescents, adults, and couples navigating trauma, stress, and life challenges. We are expecting over 75 women this evening, and much like all of you, this is a conversation that I've been looking forward to for days. Without further ado, Dr. Stefanie Goldstein.
Thank you so much. I feel so grateful to be here. And I just want to start by acknowledging how challenging this has been. I saw a meme that said I've tried 2025, my free 14-day, challenge, and I'm ready to send it back. It's been so intense for us all to be living in this uncertainty and the profound impact of the wildfires. And I'm just so grateful to be able to be invited into this beautiful community that you guys have created. And it is so important that we take moments to just pause and be and connect and drop into ourselves, to connect to what's happening within each of us, and also to connect as a community, and particularly a community of women, because we are the ones that care and nurture and create. And it is so powerful to come together and have a moment of really connecting and being in our pain and in our challenges. And we each are experiencing this in different ways, but choosing to slow down and be here is truly an act of self-care. And so before we even begin, I want to just check in. And if you guys can put it in the comments, just a word or two of how you're feeling right now. Maybe it's fearful, maybe it's numb, maybe you're having gratitude, anger, confusion. There's no wrong feeling. But so often we are in our own experience and feel like we may be the only one, or it's too much to bear to tell someone else, that we don't want to burden someone. And so you, by choosing just to write a few words about how you're feeling, or even just one, it shows each of us that we're not alone. And so if you feel comfortable, and this will all be anonymous, but just start to share. And that is part of how we feel less alone, is when we open our hearts and connect. And I actually am trying to see where I can see the comments. Where am I? Oh, there we are, down there. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I had my Zoom down further. Disoriented, sad, worried, guilt. It's a surreal experience, depleted, tired, sad for the loss, heartbroken. I mean, yes. Yes to all of these feelings. And there is so many mixed emotions right now. And I think that's something we all can really agree on more than anything, is we're feeling so much all the time. And so I want to take a moment, and if it feels comfortable, I invite you to put a hand or two on your heart. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. But I want to just have a moment of silence, of sacred silence, honoring our entire city and county that has been deeply impacted by these fires. Because whether you live here and have just been worried for friends or family, whether you've had to evacuate, you lost your home, you are someone who's lost their job because people have lost their homes, being the first responders, the firefighters, to just take a moment and open your heart and honor every single person in this Zoom room, everyone in this city, all the people that have come from other places, the outpouring of love and generosity. And we're just going to take a moment of that sacred silence to honor and hold all of this and everyone in it. And just notice how that feels. I think most of us have not been fully in our bodies, have been going from one thing to another, whether it's trying to be of service or dealing with your own loss or just feeling numb and unable to do anything. To just take a moment and be with what has happened is so profound. And the way that I do this is very interactive. And so I will invite you many times to just share in the comments how you're feeling and what's coming up for you. And so I invite anyone that wants to share what that was like just to name it because it needs to be named. And I want to just also particularly thank Lily and Ani and Pierre for graciously inviting me into this beautiful community. It's just really such an honor to be here. So tonight we're going to talk about emotional and psychological impact of the wildfires, create a space for feeling grief, all the feelings that we're having, and share some tools and resources for coping that you can start to use now. And in this room, in this Zoom room, we're going to have a variety of experiences. As I mentioned a moment ago, some of you maybe have lost everything. Some of you have been evacuated and maybe just were able to go back to your home for the first time, but it's uninhabitable right now. Some of you are holding your breath because you don't know now with the new fire. I was sharing before we started that I just had 10 college students descend upon my home because my niece goes to Cal Arts and they evacuated and needed somewhere to come. And so right before I popped in, they all came over and my husband got dinner and I came here and I was like, maybe you guys need to come too. But we're still in it. And that's what's really hard right now. But there is no hierarchy of pain. And we're really here to hold space for everyone's experience. One of the metaphors that really came forward in COVID that I think works here and feels really right to me is that we're all in the same, the idea back then was storm, now it's firestorm, but we're each in a different boat. And so to have space in your heart for everyone going through whatever it is that they're going through, including yourself. So I want to talk a little bit about grief and trauma. And so people often assume that grief is really just when you lose someone, but it's actually any unwanted change. We can have grief, losing a job, a friendship that didn't work out, losing your home, a beloved restaurant, anything. And there's so much grief that is here. And there's grief that's happening now. But for many of us, it's also triggering past grief, something that happened in your childhood, a loss that you've already experienced. And so there's tremendous amount of dysregulation that's happening. And it's hard to even find solid ground because we're still very much in it. And I've heard a lot of people refer to what's happening as PTSD, and it's not post traumatic stress disorder because we are still here. We're in the midst of it. So it's actually acute trauma because we are currently experiencing it. And I've even noticed for myself, I wake up one morning and I see clouds and I'm like, is that smoke? When I'm walking on the street and I see some particles in the air and I'm like, is that ash? And the fire today, because I knew I have family in that area and my niece, and all of that anxiety came up of, oh no, here we are again. And so a few of those responses, hypervigilance is one of them, which is what I was just describing. It's a natural response to danger. You're feeling on edge because you're trying to protect yourself in every moment. And so everything, you can't quite trust what you're experiencing. And I think even, excuse me, with the air quality, I'm sure, I mean, it's been the talk of the town of, the AQI looks good, but it's really bad. And to not feel like you can trust your own experience of what the world feels like and that there's this invisible danger feels really unsettling. And at times even scary, particularly if you have a sensitive system in some way. Sometimes you can feel shut down or numb, just on autopilot, not really being able to feel into anything. You can have irritability or anger, lashing out, feeling frustrated. This often comes up for people and wanting to cast blame at this government agency or this person, or because blame really is, and I love this definition from Brene Brown, which is the discharge of discomfort. You run into a coffee table and you're like, damn, coffee table, even though the coffee table was just sitting there. But we are uncomfortable. And so we want to blame someone, something to make us feel a little bit better. And another big one is brain fog, feeling confused, out of it, difficulty making decisions. It is a very normal stress response. And I know many people that I've come in contact with, just even, what are we going to have for dinner? I don't know. I don't know. You decide. I don't know. Those decisions can just feel like too much when you can't think clearly and you feel numb or overwhelmed. And I want to honor that each of these responses are actually your body and your mind's way of trying to protect you. They are so well intended and they're natural and normal responses. One of the things that we want to focus on today is to try to garner some tools so that we don't stay stuck there. Because the way an emotional response works is there's a stimulus, in this case, the fires and whatever each person's personal circumstances that came with that. Then there's the emotional response. And then the stimulus ends at some point. The stressor stops or it morphs into something else. But our stress response is often present even if the stressor is gone. And that's when we have to actively, intentionally tend to our own nervous systems. Because if we don't, that is when something like this acute trauma, this collective crisis that we've been experiencing can turn into something like post-traumatic stress disorder. And so the fact that you have chosen to be here is already such a support in the way of saying, no, I want to take care of myself. I am important. This is important. Even you could be doing so many other things with your time right now, but you chose to be here to take care of you. And that is what is going to bring you through this incredibly hard experience and whatever else may come, because life isn't stopping. And I don't know about you guys, but I had a friend just diagnosed with cancer. Like, there's a lot of other life hard things that are still happening. They didn't stop because of the wildfires. And that feels really hard too. It's a time where it just feels like it's just too much right now. And so just taking a breath there. And in fact, I want to take a break now and do a grounding exercise. So I invite everyone when I teach teens, my invitation is to get your mindful body on, which means if you're sitting, either, sit cross-legged or have your feet on the floor. If you have any, thing in your hands, a pen or anything, just put it down. If you have the computer, just set it down for a moment. You want to really be able to just be, to connect with your body. And so I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. If that doesn't feel comfortable, that's totally fine. Just find a place to gaze softly on the floor in front of you. And we're going to begin by taking 2 long, slow, deep breaths. Breathing in, allowing the belly to fill completely. And breathing out, letting it deflate completely. Taking 2 more long, slow, deep breaths. Inviting the muscles of your face to soften, your jaw to become soft and loose. Inviting your shoulders to drop. Your belly to uncoil. And your arms and legs to just rest comfortably, releasing any holding. And feel your body grounded. The ground beneath you, the earth beneath the ground. And taking one more final big breath in and audibly sighing out. Releasing anything that you're holding. And because your sound is off, you can do that as many times as you want, as loud as you want. And when you're ready, if your eyes were closed, opening your eyes. And in the chat, just share what you noticed in doing that practice. It was just a couple of minutes, but sometimes even just a couple of moments, minutes can shift how we're feeling, can shift how connected we are, if we're feeling more or less dysregulated. I know I feel a little bit more in my body. My chest, though still a little constricted, I can feel a little bit more open. Let's see, less physical tension in the arms and neck. Still a tight chest, but a little less than before. Same. Yeah. This is not a panacea. There is no panacea right now. But if we can start to turn down the volume, to release just a little bit of tension, a little bit of tightness, bring ourselves back into even just a little bit more regulation, we're making a profound difference. Because even if you think about two people walking in the same direction and one person shifts 1 degree, 5 degrees, they actually end up in very different places. And so that's what we're trying to do. Just throughout each day, the moments where we feel that tension and tightness, using a practice like that, which is just finding your breath, slowing it down, softening your body, and feeling yourself grounded in the earth, can be that even 5, if we're lucky, 10% difference in how we're feeling. And that can go a long way. So, kind of circling back a little bit to connect on what I was saying before the practice, and that some of the other common emotions in a situation like this is survivor's guilt. And I think someone had even mentioned that feeling guilty earlier. Why them? Why not me? It's not fair. It doesn't make any sense. And at the same time, feeling grateful and relief. And even as I'm sure every single one of us here knows someone, if not more than one person, who's lost their home. And what I've noticed is, as heartbreaking as it is, this ability to also still find gratitude. And that is so natural because even through trauma, there are things that we're grateful for. And it's important to be able to see the good too. And so our body can often go into fight, flight, freeze, or submit. And it's why I'm sure as you've looked around, different people are reacting differently. Some people become frozen, others become panicked. We all have our different coping strategies. And I think what's happening too, which is really important to start to work with within yourself, is we can be in that hypervigilance. And then our nervous systems can get dysregulated and we can start to feel unsafe. And that is so normal and natural to feel that way. And it does not mean you're overreacting. It's your body's way of preparing for a potential threat. And that's important. That comes from that ability to, when other tribes people were coming at us, or lions and tigers and bears, like we need to be able to come together and mobilize if we need to. But sometimes we have that reaction even when we're safe. And so that is the part that we want to start to slow our minds down, work with our nervous systems, and to be able to remind ourselves that is scary and I'm safe. And it's hard to do that. And it's also really important to do that. And that's not just in the moment of these fires, because we have experiences like this often in life where we are fearful that something is going to happen and we forget or aren't able to see in the moment that we're actually safe and okay. And so this is that reminder. And I felt that today with the fires because my in-laws live near there, and they had a fire in 2019, and there's a lot of trauma there, but they're a safe distance. And I had to remind myself that, like, they're okay. It's okay. Even my niece and her friends that are here, they're a safe distance. They just wanted to get some space and take care of themselves. And that was really smart and important for them to do. But I had to work with myself today and notice, okay, there's a fire. It's near them. That feels really scary. And they're safe. And that is so important to be able to do that. And then there's the practical realities of what's happening. I mean, for those of you that have lost your homes, I mean, if anyone is here, my heart just deeply goes out to you, and the amount that you have to navigate and the insurance companies, and it's can be so overwhelming. And it is so important to ask for help. Ask someone to watch your kids, ask someone who's a lawyer who knows more to help you figure out what to do. Ask someone to go to one of these incredible places that are set up with free everything and have them go pick things out for you. And then for those of us that have been incredibly fortunate and have not lost our homes, there's the practical realities that we're also dealing with of wanting to help and feeling helpless, maybe even volunteering and being of service, but not knowing if it's enough. Navigating the air quality and the fear of where you live and that another fire could happen. And there's a business side to this too, and a practical side. And we need to give space for the importance of tending to those things and also taking breaks from tending and doing something different. There's this story, a true story, where the Dalai Lama years and years ago wanted to meet with some rabbis to understand more about how their religion and culture has been able to live in the diaspora and still been able to survive and thrive because, of course, Dalai Lama has not been able to live in his home. And so these rabbis are telling him the long, sordid journey of Jews. And at some point, the Dalai Lama says, okay, I need to stop. And they said, but wait, there's more. Because, of course, in Judaism, and I am Jewish, but there's always more suffering to share. And he said, I know, but I need to tend to something else now. And it is so true. What we have been navigating is so heavy. And sometimes we just need to look at cute animal videos. I was sitting with a client earlier who had to evacuate and has been displaced. And he was saying how him and his family actually have been having like some fun. And I was like, oh, what are you doing? And every night they watch Impractical Jokers together and just laugh at the silliness and absurdness of it. But that is exactly what they need, because you can only sit in the pain and the anguish and the heartache for so long until it just becomes too much. And so, one of the ways that we can take care of ourselves is also knowing when you just need something else now, to put on a good rom-com or go talk to a girlfriend about something that's so silly, or whatever that thing is for you. Go to a dance class, whatever it is. It's so important to have that space. And one of the most important things in healing and taking care of yourself in a situation like this is community, because community is healing. And you already have this built-in, beautiful, visionary women community of women that want to support each other and come together and connect with their hearts open and with their intentions to care and tend. Because when we suffer in silence, isolation exacerbates trauma. It makes us feel alone and disconnected, and we hold that pain, and we need to tell our stories, and we need to bear witness to each other in those stories, no matter how big or small your story is. In fact, last week we chose to go to San Diego to just take a beat, get out of the air quality. And our friends took us in, and we were so grateful. And I didn't even realize how much we needed to be cared for too, because as a psychologist, there's now been many things over the last 5 years. I'd never prior in my 25 years of working as a psychologist up until 5 years ago, I've never had the experience of personally going through the same thing that my clients are going through at the same time. And so it was a very, very heavy, intense week. And our friends were so loving and took us in, and I have 3 kids and 2 dogs. Like, we're not we're not a small group. And as we were leaving and we were thanking them, they were like, we needed this too. Like, they wanted and needed to be of service and wanted to be in community, even though they were in San Diego and it wasn't directly impacting them. But it was so powerful and so healing. And part of what we needed to fill our cup back up so that we could come back and continue to be of service and to connect. And so reach out, meet with people in person, ask for help, offer help, drop by food to someone's house, whatever it is that makes sense for you and your community. But this is the time to show up and to connect and be there, because that is how we heal. We're stronger together. And I think we have seen that in moments like this, the best of humanity comes forward. And it is so beautiful. And LA has come out strong. And I mean, I've never seen so many resources and people coming together and creating pop-ups and donations, and it's just been so inspiring. And of course, it can also bring out some of the worst in humanity, but it is such a small percentage in comparison to the goodness that is coming forward, and that is in community. So I want to do another practice. So this one is about self-compassion, and it is so crucial right now. One of the most important gifts that you can give yourself is to be gentle with yourself. Living through this kind of stress takes a toll on you, and you don't even realize the toll that it's taking. And even when things feel like they've calmed down a little bit, it's like the car alarm that's going off, and then when it finally goes off, there's that sense of, but you don't even realize how much you're bracing and holding as you're trying to just manage not getting so triggered by it. And that's how we all are every day, right now, all the time. And so knowing that you are doing the absolute best that you can, and to be just easy and loving and gentle, is one of the greatest gifts. So this practice is called the self-compassion break. I'm going to tell you what it is, and then we're going to go through it. So you name that what you're experiencing is hard right now. You acknowledge that suffering and pain is a part of life. And then you offer yourself kindness. Whatever words come forward, I will offer some phrases. If they fit, wonderful. If they don't, ignore them and find your own phrases. And then one of the most important steps to me, which is the final step, is connecting to everyone who has been in a situation just like this, including our ancestors, and that they have found their way through, and that we will too. So, okay, I'm going to invite you again to get your mindful body on, to put anything down that you may be holding, to find a place that you can just sit, lay, stand, whatever position you're in comfortably. And if it feels okay, close your eyes. If not, just find a place to gaze softly on the floor in front of you. And if it feels right, just place a hand or two on your heart. Finding your breath. And take a moment to acknowledge that this is hard. This has been really hard. And in life, there are hard moments. There's pain. There is suffering. And this is one of those moments. And checking in with yourself now to see if there's a word or a phrase that's coming forward that's helpful to hear. And there may or may not be, and that's okay. And so I'm going to offer a few. May I be safe. May I love and accept myself as I am. May I take care of myself as best as I can. And now, opening your heart to imagine all the people who have been through a fire, who have been through a collective crisis like this, dating back to our ancestors, because fire is as primal and as old as time. And connecting into that common shared humanity of both the pain and suffering and the resilience and the growth and the healing. And tapping into and knowing somewhere deep inside of you that this will happen here now for all of us too. And one more big breath as we bring this to a close. Inviting you again to just share what came forward for you in doing that practice. Sometimes doing a self-compassion practice can feel hard because we often can have compassion for everyone else, but it's harder to have it for ourselves. Sometimes it's the warm hug we had no idea we needed. And so I invite you now to just share what came forward. For me, it was just a reminder, especially again, that last part of all the people that have been through this. And there are so many all over the world. And they rebuild, and there is regrowth because it's just the cycle of life. There's destruction and there is growth. And in this moment, that can feel really hard to connect to when it's so personal and happening. And somewhere in our psyche, if we can hold and connect to that, it helps so much as we traverse this. And yes, acceptance. Thank you. And so as we hold this duality of loss and opportunity to come together and be the best of humanity that we can be, it is just really important to take this moment to honor whatever is here. And I want to just quickly share my screen here because I just have very few, just a few slides. So this is just because in a few minutes we're gonna go to question and answer and comments. And I know it can be uncomfortable, and I really want to encourage everyone to take that opportunity. But before we do that, I want to just go over the top 5 tools for wildfire resilience. So recognize and validate all emotions. It's normal to feel fear, anger, numbness, relief. Give yourself permission to feel whatever you're feeling without judgment. Practice self compassion and grounding. Soften tense areas. Often that's the jaw, the shoulders, the chest, the belly. Taking slow, deep breaths. It's physiologically impossible to be anxious if you're breathing slowly. And so it is really one of the most direct keys to helping your nervous system calm down. Offer yourself kindness. May I be gentle in this tough moment. Staying connected, lean on friends, family, neighbors. Isolation can worsen stress. Reach out, ask for help, offer help. Take practical steps in whatever situation you're in to do what you need to do. Ask for help. As with the brain fog, it's hard to always know and be paying attention. So have someone else there to help you, and embrace the grief and gratitude together because they are inextricably linked. And now I want to share a poem. I believe art and poetry are the gifts that speak for us in times when we don't have the words. And I found this beautiful poem by John Rodell, who I actually discovered in COVID because of his poetry that just touched me so deeply. Sorry, I'm trying to move you guys so I can read this poem. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Okay. And as I read this, I invite you to do whatever feels good to receive it. Sometimes closing your eyes and just hearing the words and opening your heart as they come forward. Death is the wildfire that rips through the forest of our lives. It scorches the ground, it chars the rocks, it engulfs the trees. Death is the fire that comes to consume everything. But, my love, it can't. Because after the fire is gone, there is always a miracle waiting under the ashes of what our lives used to look like. And this aching miracle is called grief. Grief is the slow motion recovery that follows the insatiable fire of death. To grieve the loss of our beloved means that death didn't burn everything. Our adoration and memories of our beloved remain fully intact underneath the soot after death rages through. You see, my love, death may knock down every tree in our forest, but since grief is the aching itch of recovery that we can feel stirring beneath the scalded ground, it means that death doesn't get the last word. Love does. Love is the sapling that comes after the devastating fire. Love is the grass pushing through the once barren, fire-licked woodland floor. Love is relentless, and there is no element in existence that can ever destroy it. Love is always working its way back to us, no matter how hot the wildfire blaze. Grief is proof that we didn't let death win. Death wants us to feel numb, to feel utter despair. But when we allow ourselves to grieve, we keep the ashes from hardening. Grief is the fluttering inside of us that reminds the world that although our world has burned down to the roots, that there's still life within us. And if we can hold on long enough, life will eventually start pouring out of all of our smoldering wounds. Ecologists say that sometimes when forests burn down, they can explode into thousands of wildflowers. They call it a super bloom. That's what grief is. Death may burn our world, but grief allows it to grow back. Maybe it will never look like it used to. And maybe that is totally okay. Because, my love, maybe, just maybe, grief is the super bloom that comes after the inferno. And just breathing that in. Allowing it to settle and touch your heart. And speak truth with words, beautiful words to capture what so many of us are feeling. And then this is just my contact information, which I will also pop into the, did I stop sharing? Yes, okay, great. I will pop into the chat. And now we are open for Q&A. So this is really for anyone to comment, reflect how you're feeling, have any questions. There's no question that is not good enough to ask, even if you're like, is this normal? I've been feeling this way. This is the time. We have the space. I'm here. I'm happy to answer it as best as I can. And so just type into the chat any question or comment, or even how that poem touched you or what it brought up in you. So calming and brilliant. Thank you, Stefanie. Thank you. Mm. I know sometimes it can feel awkward and we can feel shy and reserved. And so I really do hope that, anything that moves you to just share or ask. Thank you so much for this offering. So very helpful. I'm so glad. Anxiety, any other tools you may have? Yes, actually, one that I didn't mention that I think, look, everyone is different and anxiety manifests in different ways. But one of the things that really sets anxiety aside from depression is the buzzing, the energy. Depression is often this heaviness, lethargy. It can feel like you're sort of going through molasses. It's hard to motivate and move. And energy is like, and anxiety is sometimes like having a beehive in your chest. And so sometimes sitting down and doing deep breaths, you just can't even get there because there's so much. And so physical movement is one of the quickest, most powerful ways to start to release some of that visceral, physical, somatic experience that you're having. And it can be anything. You can do jumping jacks. You can do a wall sit until your knees start to shake. You can do push ups. You can do sit ups. You can put on your favorite song and dance and thrash. I don't know how you feel about going outside right now, but it can be, going for a brisk, really hard walk or run. Something where your heart rate is up and you are actually discharging some of that energy. Because often then you can find your breath. Then you can find your way to start to find some sense of regulation. But if you don't actually physically discharge that energy, it can start to become toxic and even poisonous for your system. And it's what can exacerbate a lot of health issues too. Can give us headaches, stomach aches if you have an autoimmune. It can flare up symptoms. And the way that I see it is often like, a pressure cooker or a volcano where you're just trying to release little bits of energy here and there so that you don't get to the point of having that panic attack or that overwhelm, excuse me, where you just feel like you can't function. And so I hope is that helpful? And if there's a follow-up question, I'm happy to answer that too. But I find that to be for myself, for any of us, that we're trying to get out of it here, but it's living here. And so we have to meet ourselves where we're at, which is in our bodies. We've been hijacked by this anxiety. And so one way that we can start to navigate it is to just release. And in fact, because I know all of you have your screens off, so you don't have to worry about looking silly, one thing I want us to do is just shake it out. Shake your head, shake your arms, shake your chest and your shoulders, and just shake, 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 and then drop. And just notice how that feels. And if anyone even just wants to share briefly, even just doing that shaking, yeah, it feels fantastic. And you can go into a bathroom. Like, no one has to do you do this. You can do this anywhere. I once got into a very small but car accident when my son was really young, and I felt very anxious and hijacked by it. And then I immediately had to go to one of my other kids' basketball games, and I was still so hijacked by it. And so I was in this gym, and the gym had a stage, and I knew I had to discharge because there was just no way I was going to be able to come back into my body. And so on the stage there was a curtain, so I just went behind the curtain and I just shook it out until I could feel that. And then I was able to actually access myself. And so that is a really powerful way to work with the anxiety, especially when you're feeling it really physically. And so I'm happy that that felt fantastic, um, as you did that. And so now I think, Ani, am I going back to you, or do we
Yes,
want
yes.
another
Thank
question,
you.
a final
Thank
question,
you.
or is it time?
Certainly, we have time for a final question.
Yeah. So if there's anyone who has anything else, I'm just going to put, okay, that's website and then email. And then I will just say too, I have a private practice, and I am more than happy to speak to anyone, to connect, to support, to collaborate. And so please feel free to reach out to me with any questions or any needs. And I'm going to put some of the stuff that we talked about in the follow-up email that they're going to send out tomorrow. And my contact information will be in there too if you didn't get it tonight. But I just want to thank all of you for having me. It's been so meaningful, and I feel really honored that I was able to be here tonight in the collective connection with all of you. So thank you.
And Dr. Stefanie, thank you to you for sharing your expertise with us. It's been so valuable to kind of unpack the emotional complexity of the situation and to remind ourselves, particularly as a community of women, to have grace with ourselves, to be kind, and the transformative power of intentional and slow breathing. So, thank you so, so much. I'm so grateful to our visionary community for coming out this evening. As Dr. Stefanie said, you know, isolation exacerbates the situation. Visionary Women is here for you for whatever you may need, for us to come together in community, in groups, big and small, to support one another and to have a little bit of fun. And and so, with that, we will be sending out a communication later this week with all the information that Dr. Stefanie Goldstein has reviewed for us this evening, with some additional information as well. And finally, we'll be dropping into the chat momentarily a link for those that would be interested in contributing to Visionary Women's Wildfire Crisis Fund that I had mentioned in the beginning of our time together. We have raised collectively $80,000 to date and look forward to growing our impact together on that fund. So I wish all of you a very happy and safe and healthy evening, and we look forward to speaking with you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Mm.